Best and West here, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. Instead of watching my matches, we're going to be watching one of my friends' matches, Doggyollie. He's actually a moderator for the El Cerrito Discord group. This is from the Boulder Cup, so it might not be completely relevant to the Twilight Cup, which is happening this month, but I feel like we can still dissect the analysis of the teams and try to learn something from it. So right here, you will be able to see his opponent's team on the top, which this first match is Brokenness, and I think what he's trying to do is just see what works best for his team. So this is what he sent me. He sent me match number 1, no Skarmory counters and a lot weak to water. So Marsh Stomp did most of the work here. I didn't bring a Skarmory counter, so when he brought out his, I just went to the mirror. Lead with Scar the second round and got lucky. He started with Medicham, forcing the switch, and Marsh stepped in to counter Donphan. So this is the first match. So he just decided to lead off with Marsh Stomp, and it does most of the work because, let's see, weak against water, Donphan and Claydol. So Marsh Stomp versus Flygon. This is Marsh Stomp does neutral damage to Flygon. So leads off with the Surf, does neutral damage but a lot of damage. So because Flygon is ground and dragon resists, but ground takes super effective damage against Surf. So he leads off with the Earthquake. Earthquake does a lot of damage, but he decides to shield, Doggyollie that is. So he gets off a second Surf. Brokenness decided to shield that. Doggy gets a Surf off. He shielded that. He uses his second shield on that Surf. So now Brokenness has no more shields, and Doggy uses Surf, knocks Flygon out. Now, both of them don't have shields. If it were me, I wouldn't have switched. I would have just kept on using Marsh Stomp because it's a neutral matchup, but he decides to switch. The Sky Attack will do not very effective against Skarmory. So this mirror match is just battle of the, I don't know, it's just going to take a very long time. It's just going to be Sky Attack to Sky Attack, Sky Attack to Sky Attack. It's not going to do very much damage, so it's just, yeah. But it's also one of the few matches where you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to do a good amount of damage on the opposing Skarmory. So Brokenness's Skarmory knocks out Doggy's Skarmory. So he switches back to Marsh Stomp, gets that Surf off. This will do neutral damage to Skarmory and knock it out. So he switches to Claydol, gets the Surf up. This is going to deal super effective damage, almost all his health. Claydol is a little tanky, but charges up so slow. And so he gets his next Surf off, and that's it. Round 1 in the books. Okay, so nice. Doggy got the Sinnoh Stone, and they're about to go into this second round. I believe Doggy. Okay, from now on, whenever I mention he, that just refers to Doggy, versus his opponent is gonna be the other person. So I believe he's looking at his team again, and I just can't imagine him changing his lineup. So, okay, he leads off with Skarmory instead. Okay, so that makes sense. He leads off with Skarmory instead. So his opponent sends out Medicham. This is a positive matchup for him. So Medicham instantly gets switched out to Donphan, but this allows Doggy to switch into Marsh Stomp, and this is just a matchup for Marsh Stomp, no doubt. Super effective damage with the Surf. I believe Doggy shields this. Earthquake just does a lot of damage. Just neutral damage, but a lot of damage. So Surf, this is going to do a lot of super effective damage if he doesn't block. Wasted both shields, so Donphan's going to use Earthquake again, and Doggy's going to block that. This Surf is going to get off because the charge is so fast. Super effective damage, knocks out Donphan. Sends out Medicham. So this is a neutral matchup, but Doggy decides to switch, which is a more beneficial matchup. uses Sky Attack, super effective damage, knocks Medicham out right away. Skarmory versus Skarmory, this is a mirror match, but Doggy does have less health, so his Skarmory is probably going to be knocked out first. So we're going back and forth. He gets his Sky Attack off, and Doggy just takes it. Going back and forth again. Doggy gets his Sky Attack back up. Goes back. Not very effective damage, but this is actually pretty close. So this is going to get pretty close to knocking Doggy out. If not, okay. Marshtomp has his Surf charged up. Boom. This should knock out that Skarmory. And that's the second match. Gets 500 Stardust, and moving right along to round 2. Okay, before we get into the next round, I just wanted to note some key takeaways from that match that you can apply to Twilight Cup or any other tournament that you might be participating in. I think the key takeaway is don't allow your opponent to get the switch advantage. So by default, that means that you should try to pick your leadoff Pokemon very carefully. Don't pick a Pokemon that has a lot of counters. So I think Doggy got kind of lucky with the Skarmory pick against the Medicham, but that's a risk that you take, right? But I think Brokenness kind of messed up by bringing in Donphan, knowing that Doggy had a Marshtomp ready. So by that, Donphan lost that matchup just from that one switch advantage, right? So yeah, I think that's the key takeaway from that match. So as we get into this second round, the notes that Doggy sent me, lots of fighting types. So I counted on Scar to go to work. I hit the charge when Haryana came out and he switched to Breloom, so I missed a chance to launch Sludge Bomb. But switched to a better matchup, it delayed the Marsh Haryana matchup. So as you can see, he has Hitmonchan, Breloom, and Haryana. So Skarmory, sent out Skarmory first. There's a mirror match, but it's just a mirror match. We saw this earlier. So Sky Attack, he gets his Sky Attack off. Doggy decides to shield this, so he gets the full shield effect from Sky Attack at least. I think he did that because Skarmory is so important in this cup. So Doggy gets his second Sky Attack off. Sour gets his second Sky Attack off. Doggy decides to shield that one, and Sour does too. So now this should deal the Sky Attack. So I think Doggy was deciding to shield because Sour was shielding. So because Doggy got the initiative on the Sky Attacks, he just did whatever his opponent was doing. Luckily, Doggy was able to get this Sky Attack off, and so now Doggy's Skarmory must have been a little bit better. Probably not by much, but now is Marshtomp versus Hariyama. Hariyama got switched out right when Marshtomp had his Surf charged up, and Breloom ate that Surf, but it was not very effective. But Doggy switched to Medicham and got super effective Ice Punch on Breloom. So Hariyama versus Medicham, Ice Punch. Hariyama gets his charge move off. Dynamic Punch, not very effective, but does enough damage to knock him out. So Marshtomp gets his Surf up, knocks out Hariyama. So that wasn't a hard match, but it was closer than his previous matches. So I believe Doggy, what do his notes say? Second round lead with Marsh. I didn't have a great counter for Whiscash, so I went Medicham, took a Mud Bomb to save shields, meta ice coverage over Gligar, almost got a second one off, then Marsh came in to finish, then Scar Mirror. So Doggy leads off with Marshtomp versus Skarmory. This is a pretty even matchup depending on shield usage. So his opponent switches to Whiscash. Doggy switches to Medicham. Medicham gets hit by a Mud Bomb. Medicham uses Ice Punch. So this will deal neutral damage, but he decides to shield. Whiscash goes ahead and uses Mud Bomb again. Doggy shields, gets another Ice Punch off. This will deal neutral damage. Not too much damage. I think he was just trying to waste shields, possibly, because Ice Punch does more, requires less energy. So he goes ahead and uses Ice Punch again, because it does double effective damage, like super effective times 2 against Gligar, but he couldn't get it off. So Gligar goes ahead and uses Aerial Ace against Marstomp. This Surf will deal super effective damage, knock out Gligar. He gets another Surf off against this Skarmory and does almost half damage. Skarmory goes ahead and uses Sky Attack, knocks out Marstomp. So Skarmory mirror match, and Doggy should win this. The Sour Skarmory has less than half health left, so with no shields, yeah, Doggy should easily win this matchup. So Doggy decides to finish it off with the Sky Attack, and that's the round. So Doggy wins 2-0. Okay, so for that match, key takeaways. I think for the first round, the key losing point for Sour was that he gave Doggyollie the switch advantage. Once you switch, you can no longer switch for a certain amount of time. I don't know the exact amount of time, but it's a decent amount of time. So by switching out his Hariyama in a pretty neutral matchup, he exposed himself to a disadvantageous matchup with Medicham. So he brought in Breloom, which is a advantageous matchup against Marstomp, but by doing so, he exposed himself to Doggy Switch, which was Medicham, which has Ice Punch and deals super effective damage to Breloom. So that's one of the takeaways from that last match. So for the second match, a couple of things that I noticed were that Sour decided to knock out Doggy's Marstomp with the Sky Attack right after Doggy had used Mud Bomb or Surf, whatever the case. He used a charge move. I feel like Sour could have just saved that energy because Marstomp was already really low on HP. By saving that energy, he could have gotten a Sky Attack off right as Doggy brought in his own Skarmory. This would have kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference, but that's one of the improvements that I think Sour could have done to deal an extra charge attack against the Skarmory. There was definitely back and forth, and I think the Gligar pick was kind of a hindrance. It didn't do enough damage. It was kind of back and forth. Nothing stood out to me that much. I think Doggy just played that better. But yeah, if there was one takeaway, I think that you can take from that last match, I think that Sour could have used his charge moves a little bit better and saved energy and utilized that energy a little bit better. Okay, we're going to get into this next match. This is going to be the last match that I'm going to cover. It's Doggyollie versus Buckyball. So Buckyball, as you can see, has a double Skarmory which is something that we won't be able to do in the Twilight Cup or any of the future cups is my suspicion. Skarmory is super meta in this tournament, so having double Skarmory actually made a lot of sense. But not really sure what Doggy decided to do and what team he chose. So let's go ahead and check it out. So Doggy sent out Marstomp versus Skarmory. This is a pretty neutral matchup. So Doggy starts off with the Surf. Should deal neutral damage to Skarmory. Skarmory will get off a Sky Attack. Doggy decides to shield this, which is perfectly fine. Doggy's going to get another Surf off, and my suspicion is Bucky's going to not shield it. He probably has another Skarmory, that's why. So, Bucky's going to get another sky attack off. Doggy's going to shield it. He's going to go ahead and use Surf. Bucky decides to shield that one. Now, if Bucky can get a sky attack off, then it was worth it. If he didn't, then I don't think it would have been worth it. Knocks out Marsh Stomp. Doggy decides to bring in his Skarmory. Bucky sends in his second Skarmory. So Doggy gets his first sky attack off. Not very effective damage, but Bucky has an advantage. He has a shield. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. Bucky gets his sky attack off. Goes back and forth. Sky attack again. Bucky decides not to shield that one. So Bucky gets his sky attack off. Back and forth, back and forth. Doggy's going to get his sky attack off. Right here. This is probably going to be the last sky attack that Doggy can get off. Yep. So that's it. Doggy sends in Medicham. Medicham versus Medicham, but at this point, Doggy's already at a disadvantage because he has no shields. Bucky decides to shield that Dynamic Punch or Ice Punch. I forgot what it was. But, yep. So Bucky decides to use Dynamic Punch. I think it might have dealt a little bit more damage. It's a little bit more energy charge. Yep. So back and forth, back and forth. Bucky gets his charge move off. It's another Dynamic Punch, and that knocks out Doggyollie. Okay, so moving right along into the second match. Let's see what Doggy decides to choose for his team. I think, let's see, if he chooses this team, it's the same team as last round. I think he's just thinking about it, because if it didn't work the first time, why would you do it the second time? So he's looking at his team. What weaknesses does he have? Water, neutral, 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 maybe an advantage. So I think his MVP is Marsh Stomp right here, but he decides to put in Melmetal. So he puts in Melmetal instead of Marsh Stomp, which I don't think is like the best idea, but we'll see how it goes. So Melmetal versus Medicham is a terrible matchup. So you had to switch instantly, which gave Bucky Ball that switch advantage, but Bucky just switched into Skarmory. So Skarmory Mirror Match. Bucky gets that sky attack off after Doggy gets his off. Doggy gets his second sky attack off. Bucky decides not to shield that. So they go back and forth. Doggy decides to shield this one. And go back and forth. Doggy gets his sky attack off. Bucky decides to shield that one. So back and forth, back and forth. Bucky gets his sky attack off. Yep, Doggy decides to shield that one. Goes back and forth. Doggy should get this sky attack off. And this should knock out Bucky. Unless he shields. So Bucky has no more shields. Neither does Doggy. But Doggy loses that matchup. Doggy sends in Melmetal, knocks it out. But again, Bucky sends in Medicham. Very good counter to Melmetal. Doggy switches to Medicham, and yep, that's pretty much it. Bucky sends in his second Skarmory, and it's just gonna be a bad matchup. This sky attack should knock Doggy out. So Doggy sends in Metal and knocks out Skarmory, but then Medicham comes back in, and this should knock out Melmetal. Just counter alone just does so much damage, and this Dynamic Punch is just gonna wipe him. Yep, and that's the match. Okay, so key takeaways from the first match were that Doggy decided to use his shields really early, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but looking at PV Poke, Skarmory actually wins in a no shields match, um, wins significantly in a one shield match, and loses in a two shield match. So what should have happened is that Doggy should have just used one shield and saved that other shield for something else. I know, like, it's easy to look back at it now and say that, but just knowing your matchups is a really big deal. Um, Doggy also didn't get that surf off in time, that he had charged up completely, so that was a big deal. That pretty much that almost made it so that his last surf was like that last shield was kind of lost, you know. So if I were to take anything away from that match, I think that's what you should take away. If I were to take anything away from that match, that's what I would have taken away. So from the second match, what I saw was that Doggy was trying to hard counter Bucky's two Skarmories, and that would work, except Bucky preempted that switch by using a Medicham as a starter. So expecting Doggy to put in Melmetal or put in something that can hard counter his double Skarmories was, it just worked, you know. Melmetal is very weak to fighting, and that so Doggy was forced to switch, giving Bucky the switch advantage. So by switching to Skarmory, Bucky just brought in his Skarmory, and because Bucky had two Skarmories, he was gonna win that matchup, right? So Doggy was just always losing the switch advantage. So even if he was able to knock out one Skarmory in the beginning, he lost the next one because Bucky just brought in his Medicham to counter that Melmetal. It just went on like that for the whole match, and that's why Doggy lost. What he could have done differently is, I guess, just the initial matchup. The Melmetal versus Medicham was just rough, you know. I think putting something a little bit more neutral would have served him better, you know. Maybe starting off with Skarmory instead, or and just trying to finish that mirror match before having less Pokemon, you know. I think that could have helped a little bit more, maybe saving the shields for Melmetal, because Medicham's Dynamic Punch does so much damage. I'm not sure if that would have helped, but because Counter does so much damage as well. But I think it could have helped a little bit, because at least Melmetal can deal neutral damage to Medicham. But yeah, that's if there was any takeaway from that second match, it's that. Okay, guys, that was the end of this video. I analyzed 3 matchups that my friend Doggyollie participated in for the Berkeley Boulder Cup. I know it's not everything, and it might not hold too much relevance considering that, you know, the Boulder Cup ended already, but there was definitely takeaways that you can apply to any tournament. Like what I went over kind of applies to every tournament. So hopefully you guys were able to take something away from it and apply it to the next one. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And until next time, guys, this is Best and West. I'll catch you guys later.